Hello, welcome to my channel for Evolved Humans. I am Ms. Day. I used a different deck for the reading this time. I used my Celtic deck, which is neat because it kind of made me think of family. I have 3 decks. So it kind of just made me think about family. And I almost think that the importance of that at this moment, for whoever this reading is for, it's about you creating a family out of thin air, just like out of your own concept of what that means to you. And it looks like there's a masculine presence in this reading that I think is kind of like, if you're a female, it feels like you have a guided feeling and you know it's masculine. And then if you're a male, it feels like you are on a solo journey and your concept of everything has grown. So in the first wave, it was like there's temptation and it's negative, and that means like in your past, I feel that you went through, unfortunately, I keep kind of being drawn to the reality that at the time that we're living in, temptations are things that we must overcome throughout the stages of our human's development because they're such an unavoidable part of the world that we live in. It's like you can't get through it untouched. And it's like whoever you are, you came out of that. You kind of came out of the other side of that. And you've just been searching ever since to find a way to connect in a family feeling. But it's way bigger than that. I'm also getting this feeling like you need feminine around you. But I don't think that is... Somebody said in the comments like, well, I need feminine, but when I'm talking feminine and when I'm doing these readings, it's all about the connection to yourself. Like, I don't talk about other people affecting you in a way that has anything to do with like what they want or what type of person they are, because I don't know. All I know is that in each reading there's a feeling, and if certain pieces of it apply to your situation and it can help you in it, then that's a positive. That's a gain. So the center of this reading is actually, it is like the symbol of not work. And the cool part of that is I have a card because my mom, I have a lot of Irish heritage in my family, and my mom gave me this thing, and she gave me this, I have a card that I'm going to read it instead of saying anything else. It describes not work, like literally it says not work, and it says not work patterns are symbolic of life's journey, an attempt to make sense of the maze of existence. They represent a continuity of life with no beginning and no end, a journey to one's spiritual center, an inner quest for spiritual rebirth, and a pathway to the sacred and divine source. And that is, I think, saying that your quest forward needs to be with a family intention. And that does not mean you have to be with people or like blossom a family. I think that when I'm even thinking of like the fruitful thing, the be fruitful, and I'm looking at like, there's this super cute squirrel picture. And I'm like thinking about all of the little gray squirrels that we've seen recently, and we've been like paying attention to where they live in the winter, you know, what they do, because my children are asking about that, and I'm like, I don't really know what they do. I just know that I see them all over the place, and this is the behavior I see. So but in private squirrel time, I don't really know. And so this is kind of, there's a childlike presence in that I think ties into the heart of the reading, where it's like the feminine I think that you're in need of is kind of like a little hop in your step. It's like there's another bit of it where I find it important to communicate when I'm learning, because when I'm going through experiences and you're going through experiences, leveling up, and even like not like always like, oh, I'm leveling up, but if you're going through an experience, say someone has done something like an act in your extended family and you have to process it and then lay it down where it needs to go, or like make an action, take action or don't, when you have to process. This seems like you need some way of bouncing your own thoughts off of something so that it pings back and forth. And that's where, how funny. I'm remembering, this is so funny. I'm remembering a moment in grade school that I've thought about like randomly, but there was this super Christian lady in my school, and my parents were very open to us being open. So like I had the opportunity to go to church when I was younger, and I did. And I also had like a serious soft spot for anything to do with that religion, and like spirituality and everything. And then I was in grade school this one time, and I had never had an emotional connection. Like I'd never had an emotional connection where I was like, am I interacting with anything out there? I didn't have that. I had curiosity like a kid, where I asked questions, kind of like, because I would see things in movies where like they'd make a wish at this moment, or they'd make a wish and there was a shooting star, And I thought I was playing around. I thought I was just being free in my mind. And then this woman said to me, I have no idea why, I just have always remembered this very clear, like very vivid memory of this super sweet woman that I don't think she worked at the grade school that I was in, but for some reason she was there around the time of like some Halloween, some festival that we were like having at the school. Weird. Okay, so when she was there, I just remember this moment that I had passing with her in the hall, and it was like in between classes where I was going to the bathroom, and for some reason I like got asked to take something to the office. They were always doing that. Like for some reason they super trusted me when I was a little child. And my daughter had the same experience in her elementary school. Okay, so this woman said to me, which I had never heard in church, like they hadn't explained it in the right way in the church that I attended as a small child. And they were very anti-stuff that was like in society that I couldn't block out. Like my parents had it happening, my siblings had it around them. It was like, so to be negative and hateful at something that I had in my environment was not beneficial to me. It just made me kind of close the door like, oh, well, that doesn't align with my parents. But this lady said to me in the hallway, always stuck. And she said, you can talk to God anytime you want. And I was like, no. And she was like, yeah, you can do it right now. She was like, nobody has to know. No one ever has to know. And I just remember walking away from her, going to the bathroom in the school, and I just remember like standing and washing my hands and thinking to myself, like, I think if there's a God, then I think that I'm going to try, I tried talking to God because of this woman saying that to me. And the interesting thing is, this is making me think of like a child, and it's also making me think of going through development and never reaching the stage as an adult where you can comfortably communicate your feelings out your mouth. And that's why I feel like it's important sometimes. You know what this is also making me think of is a note I had written where it's like before you go through what people call the spiritual awakening, which I call it just becoming consciously aware of reality as it is, instead of being like kind of blocked off to a certain perception of it. I think it's just a more aligned perception suddenly coming into your human view, and you're like, whoa. And this is kind of like someone who has gone through a whole bunch of growth and periods of self-development and personal growth and emotional processing even, but it's almost like there is still this belief in there at the core that you cannot attain what it is you're looking for. And I don't know what this thing is too. Also in the future aspect, like I don't believe in calling out the future. I've said it, I'm going to keep saying it because I don't believe in calling out the future. That's insane. I'm a human. I can't make choices for other people's life path. So this is reminding me of a very odd thing that Jim Rohn said. It was a clever thing, but I don't know how it ties in yet. But Jim Rohn said that there are wolves and there are sheep, and then there are wolves in sheep's clothing. And he said that's where you need a woman, because they can see past the sheep's clothing and then be like, no, that's a wolf. And I don't know if this reading is telling you that interacting with a feminine could be beneficial. I don't know what that is, because when I focus on these, I'm focusing on one energy. But it's almost like if you can trust your intuition instead of looking for answers outside of yourself, like if you can trust your own intuition, I think that you can spot a wolf in sheep's clothing. And I think that's really important, because when you're seeking, what are we all seeking? Like, it's truth. That's what we should all be seeking. And you should be very strict about what the truth is to you. That should be very much like boundaries around what enters in here and you emotionally accept. That is the way to protect. So it's like if you're trying to be a protective individual, a protective person, it's like then you have to actually be creating something to protect around you, or something to be protective. Like, it's almost like in this reading too, that you, in a future moment, are looking at yourself right now, and it's like there's something about your ability to see yourself as fruitful, even if there's something lacking. I feel that there's something lacking environmentally, and I don't mean you're lacking something. It's like that's how you feel, is that something is missing. And I think it's your own awareness of your fruitfulness. Like, you are fruitful if you are interactive emotionally in some way. So with whatever you do, I feel like it has to, it's also making me think about every moment that I have had where I've had it kind of like aligned with my current moment perception, moments view, that being present in the moment is more beneficial than chasing the next one. Like, what is missing what it is that you need to fulfill or complete or accomplish or even just find in a direction in, if it weren't doable healthily, then it isn't right. That reminds me of something else I wrote down from earlier today. I saw a clip of Megyn Kelly interviewing someone about the drones that are in the skies, and the government is like, we don't know. And she was just calling that out as BS because, anyway, she said, and I wrote it down because I just loved the wording that she used very quickly. She said, if it doesn't make sense, it's not true. And that's why she was saying, like, she was referring to the government not knowing, not making sense. I'm referring to whatever it is that you think is going to fulfill you. I think that your output is the fulfillment. Like, I don't think that you're going to reach a destination. I think that you need to create something, and it needs to be fully aligned with what you truly believe in. It's almost like it's making me think of an impressionable person. Craziness. It's all two things. It's making me think of an impressionable person where they can just think about public school, where a child goes into the air of junior high and there are all of these other people all around them, so they've got peer pressure and they've got just the awareness of everyone else's experiences, because like nobody really keeps their emotions off of other people's backs as they're developing, because they don't know how to do that. Like, this is the stage in life to do that, is when you're in your adolescent years, is when you're like, oh, this is what I do with everything I've been through. This is what I do with the things I find unjust about the world. It's kind of like you're in a stage of development that's similar to that, where you've learned so much that you need to put use to it, like put it to use in a way that isn't just filling in the blanks with something that already exists. And I mean beliefs. I don't mean facts. Like, I don't mean make up facts where they don't exist. I mean create from a place inside that is wanting to find that home on the outside. Amazing. It's reminding me of another thing I heard today, which is the man who is the human that brought yoga as a whole thing to the Western world. There was a special done about him, and Yogananda. I literally have a piece of paper with his name on it right here. I don't know how to say this. So Yogananda, he is amazing because of everything that he said. Like, everything he said, I align my yoga with that. That was something that I used his words to kind of guide me through it when I was learning how to instruct yoga. I took his wording and his like energy about it and his beliefs about it. I took that on as I learned yoga in a physical way, so that I understood what was experienced when he was experiencing it, as opposed to what everyone now says about it. Like, I wanted to go kind of further, as far back as I could, comfortably. So anyway, I heard this thing from him today, this morning. I was reminded of him saying to plead to God like you would cry to God like you would cry out to your mother or father. And that reminds me of what I just told you about, like talking to them wherever you are. Because in that way, I believe that is why we can interact with energy. And it's like why we get those moments of knowing that people are still here, because we're meant to know, or we wouldn't get these little moments from nature. So what he said was to cry out to God like you're crying out to your mother or father. Like, where are you? Who are you? Show me who I am. Show me how you are with me and how I am a part of you. And you know what's wild? Right before I did this reading, I shuffled and one card popped out. And it was right after I was like, what is the most important message to get out in this next reading? And what I immediately got from the card was connect to nature. Trust what you know. Trust what you know to be true, not what you hear other people say to be true. And that's why I think I'm being reminded of him saying that. Because, and that memory of me in grade school where that person said, like, you know, you can do that all by yourself. Like, you don't have to go somewhere to have that happen inside of you. And the thing I feel like is important too is when you ask, when you seek, it's just like life, because it's still reality. When you go through horribly difficult times of maybe even being shut off emotionally or just in a really dark place, that's what I mean in the past. At first I was like all about temptation, and now I'm realizing that's what someone did with their negative experiences. In the way that we are impressionable as young adolescents and young adults, you know, where we kind of latch on to someone we think is cool and we go with what they do, like in a way of mimicking it. And that's only a part of processing. We don't want to stop there. We don't want to stop at the imitation of something else. We want to take what is available and then see what we can do with it, especially in the world of experiencing energy and information in nature, because it belongs to you. You don't need anybody to tell you anything. You can go directly to the source, which is always available to you. And even if you don't have a feeling of trusting your own intuition, knowing when someone is trustworthy, I think that is stemming from sometimes it's a reflection of people from the past treating us badly, so we think we're going to see that in other people. But in this reading, it feels like what you need to know is that in this case, when you don't know if you can trust your own self to know a wolf in sheep's clothing, that is because of the depth of pain you've actually experienced. But that's also the key. When you've experienced something so low emotionally, and especially at times in life that I don't think were necessarily, like maybe tender times, it's like once we heal from those wounds, great. Like, we can be so strong. That's what I think you are. But it can make you so strong you don't let other people in. But you know, that's a part of the processing. And this feels so much like you need to trust the process. And that means that when you ask for a sign and ask for clarity, even asking for clarity of your thoughts, even asking what kind of sign to look for, like I'm literally thinking needlepoint specific. Like, get so specific. Nail one question that's going to help you understand your connection to the natural world better. Find one thing that you think if you could understand that, then that would take you to the next level. If you can ask that question, it's going to be in real time, meaning it might not come until you get into a sort of emotional experience when you're falling to sleep that night, or when you're at work the next day and suddenly you remember that you had that moment with yourself, and then a song comes on and you're like, I'm going to hear a song that reminds me of something. Like, it's that simple, but it's that specific. And that's why it's so easy to miss signs. Funny, I just made a total mess of like all of my index cards before I started this reading because I needed them out of the way for a reading. But I'm remembering so many things I wrote down, and like that's insane because I wrote them down during a reading, like at so many different times, and now I'm just like kind of picking little things from it. And it's like that, think about that in reverse motion, where it's like instead of waiting for some big thing to create, start creating in all the little things. Strangers. Like, let your own energy just sort of interact in a more deep way in every single interaction that you have. But the thing I was remembering is I was just kind of going through this wave of a moment earlier, and I was thinking about my children and how similar it is to becoming aware consciously of energy and nature. Because when you look at, and this is why he was saying reach out like you're reaching out to a parent. Because I was applying it to my kids, and I was thinking about like each of them going through different stages of development. We haven't gone full grown yet, which is, thank God, not yet. But like, the thing is, if they behave, like if they show me that they will not do harm to others with their behavior, and they will not do harm to themselves with their behavior when they go out, to like a store, a park, or the lake, or like to a person's house, things like that. If they don't make it their own responsibility to do what is right, then I don't know if they can handle more opportunities to have new freedoms. And like, I want them to have all of the opportunities possible and available to them. But throughout development, those opportunities change because their desires change. So there are missed opportunities along the way. That's just nature's course. That's the process. And it's like, I don't hold those opportunities back from them. They just may not necessarily align with them because of their own learning process along the journey. And this feels like having patience with your own learning is becoming awakened. The most enlightened you can become is aware that if you need time to process, you need to make time to process. If it takes a longer time for you to go through something heavy, or to break through the barriers of trust, then allow for that time to do so. Because there's a child in there, and that is precious. That is the thing that attaches you to nature, is that you are parented by a perfect parent. It's just that this world doesn't know how to hear it anymore. And so we don't always know how to listen. And in this case, I feel like you'll hear it as soon as you ask to. And it's going to be different. This is another thing I was reminded of before I even started the reading. Before I even shuffled, I heard a couple of songs, and one of them, which just has been coming in probably only in the last several weeks. Like, I haven't really had this song as a part of my life. It's just one that keeps coming in. And every time I hear it, I align it with the Bible. I just got a weird feeling in my chest, but I align it with that Bible quote that we walk in faith, we walk by faith, not by sight. And I feel like, oh, that feels like really deep, like a really deep message. That's a really common couple of lines from the Bible too. But I keep hearing that song, that silence is golden, golden, oh, but the eyes still see. And like, sometimes when you don't know how you're going to get an answer, you just have to try it out. You just have to give yourself spaces that have openings for an answer. You don't have to meditate. I think that's probably why I remembered that moment in the hallway, because there's a direction with which you communicate, and that direction, it's projected out of you when you reach. That's why Yogananda said to cry out to God like you're crying out to a parent. And that is something I wrote down, is that your focus controls your energy. And that was something that was spoken in that video that I mentioned a couple of readings back, where one of the women who had experienced an afterlife experience when she was aged 4, she said that what she learned was that whatever she focused on, put her attention to, she went to it. And that's because light travels fast. And when it comes to receiving an answer and you've been hit in the lowest of low, like you've experienced the darkest trenches of loss, I feel like it's actually really intelligent that your body resists. It's resisting pain. It's not resisting connection. It's resisting pain from loss. But we can be so resistant of loss that we actually miss out on opportunities along the way, because we're still avoiding that pain again after we came out of it. But in avoiding, I feel like that silence, you still know, you're still connected. And it's like, if that's what it is when we're not in our body, when you're just awareness that can travel all over the place in an aware state, then what are you doing with a human body and a vehicle and the ability to be fruitful with it? And I don't mean producing children. I mean producing stuff that is tangible, that will stay, that exists. Even if you're the only one to experience it, this is an opportunity to do that. When you start to create around you, it's like that's a way of communicating. Neat. That's what this is about. Because I'm like, how can I be telling someone they need a friend? I'm like the least I need to talk to a human person that you will find. And although there are certain people that when I communicate with them, I get all the best questions to guide me on my way. And I think that in this reading, creating is a way of you doing that. That's so interesting. I was doing that today. I'm like making a song on the piano, because it's a very old piano. It was my great-grandmother's, who was blind from the age of 2, and she was a music professor, a college music professor. Like, blind people just were not that successful at the time that she was alive, so it just blows my mind. But anyway, I was making a song today on the piano, and it was a different, I've never done it before. Like, I've made songs on the piano, but I was doing it with a totally different intention, and I was creating it in a way that I was putting my emotional attachment to different family members into different parts of a song, because I'm making one song for them. And it's like, they'll probably never hear it, but it was something I've not done before, and in my moment I just kind of had that feeling to do something different with it, and I did, and it was kind of like, it was messy. It was so messy, but it was so worth it. It was like really fun. I felt like I was in a clumsy child moment, you know, where they do a makeover and they look more clownish than like, you know, magical. Anyway, which is so fun. Face paint is so fun with children. It's one of my favorite things. So the other bit of this is the heart space in this reading. Like, I feel that the heart space of this reading is much more aligned with the mind than maybe your desire is. It's almost like you're stale with yourself. And that's another part of why I think I was told immediately, like, that you need to connect to nature, because you can't just experience it. You have to be, you are experienced. You're experienced within nature. It experiences you. So it's like trying to tell you, like, I see a wolf. Like, that's what you need to see. And that's what needs to be. Like, you need to exist. Nature is experiencing you, even if no one else is. It's very endearing. It's so feminine. And the entire reading, I'm like, I felt like the message was you need the feminine. And it's almost like the entire time you're being told, like, you're so nestled by nature. Your childlike state is safe in there. It's like those are the eyes you need to have looking out again. It's emotional. The more emotional you feel, the more emotionally attached you are to nature, the more full you like your processes are. So you can create things that maybe you didn't create before that connection. Okay. I'm going to leave it at that. I hope that's helpful. This is a pretty deep one, pretty quick. Okay, I'll see you in the next reading. Bye.